तदेव निष्कलं ब्रह्म निर्विकल्पं निरञ्जनम् तद्ब्रह्माहमिति ज्ञात्वा ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते ध्रुवम् निर्विकल्पमनन्तं च हेतुदृष्टान्तवर्जितम् अप्रमेयमनादिं च यज्ञात्वा मुच्यते बुधः न निरोधो न चोत्पत्तिः न बद्धो न च साधकः न मुमुक्षुर्न वै मुक्तः इत्येषा परमार्थता एक एवात्मा मन्तव्यो जाग्रत् स्वप्न सुषुप्तिषु स्थानत्रय व्यतीतस्य पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते एक एव हि भूतात्मा भूते भूते व्यवस्थितः एकधा बहुधा चैव दृश्यते जलचन्द्रवत् घटसंवृतमाकाशं नीयमाने घटे यथा घटो नीयेतनाकाशः तथा जीवो नभोपमः घटवत् विविधाकारं भिद्यमानं पुनः पुनः तद्भग्नं न च जानाति स जानाति च नित्यशः शब्दमायावृतो नैव तमसा याति पुष्करे भिन्ने तमसि चैकत्वम् एक एवानुपश्यति शब्दाक्षरं परं ब्रह्म तस्मिन् क्षीणे यदक्षरम् तद्विद्वानक्षरं ध्यायेत् यदिच्छेच्छान्तिमात्मनः द्वे विद्ये वेदितव्ये तु शब्द ब्रह्म परं च यत् शब्द
Sound has stopped suddenly.
I'm just getting in touch with him, Swamiji.
Hello, Zoya.
मन्थानुभूतेन ज्ञाननेत्रं समादाय उद्धरेत् वह्निवत्परम् निष्कलं निश्चलं शान्तं तद्ब्रह्माहमिति स्मृतम् सर्वभूताधिवासं यत् भूतेषु च वसत्यपि सर्वानुग्राहकत्वेन तदस्म्यहं वासुदेवः तदस्म्यहं वासुदेव इति। सुवेक्ष्यो जकुम्भां सुधा पूर्णकुम्भां प्रसादावलम्बां प्रपुण्यावलम्बां सदा सेन्दुबिम्बां सदा नोष्टबिम्बां भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् कटाक्षे दयादां करे ज्ञानमुद्रां कलाभिर्विनिद्रां कलापै सुभद्रां पुरस्त्रीं विनेत्रां पुरस्तुङ्गभद्रां भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् ललामाङ्गफालां लसदानलोलां स्वभक्तैकपालां यशश्रीकपोलां करे त्वाक्षमालां कनकप्रत्नलोलां भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् सुसीमन्तवेणीं त्रिशानिर्जितैणीं रमत्कीरवाणीं नमद्वज्रपाणीं सुधामन्धरास्यां मुदा चिन्त्यमेणीं भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् सुशान्तां सुदेहां त्रिगन्तेकचान्तां लसत्सल्लताङ्गीम् अनन्तामचिन्त्यां स्मरेतापसैसङ्गपूर्वस्थितां तां भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् उरङ्गे तुरङ्गे मृगेन्द्रे खगेन्द्रे मराले मदेघे महोक्षेधिरूढां महत्यां नवम्यां सदा सामरूपां भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् ज्वलत्कान्तिवह्निं जगन्मोहनाङ्गीं भजे मानसाम्भोज शुभ्रान्तभृङ्गीं निजस्तोत्रसङ्गीत नृत्यप्रभाङ्गीं भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् भवाम्भोजनेत्राज सम्पूज्यमानां लसन्मन्दहास प्रभावत्र चलचञ्चलाचारु ताटङ्गकर्णीं भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम् भजे शारदाम्बाम् अजस्रं मदम्बाम्
Hari Om Swamiji. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Our respectful pranams, Swamiji. Salutations and welcome to all the other sadhakas who are with us today. I'll just make a couple of very brief announcements before Swamiji starts his discourse. The Sampurna Yajmans for today's discourse and all discourses of Amrita Bindu Upanishad are Sri Chittur Manohar, Srimati Jolly Silvipat, Srimati Nirja Birla, Srimati Radha Kini. The Sampurna Upayajmans are Srimati Chitra Vora, Srimati Kalpana Morparia, Sri Kishore Mallarpur, Srimati Kumud Gyanendra Mishra, Srimati Preeti Saxena. The Dhainik Yajamans for today's discourse are Srimati Malati Mazumdar, Srimati Manjari Parekh, Srimati Meghana Shastri. May the grace and blessings of Jagadishvara, Pujya Gurudev, Pujya Guruji, and the Guru Shishya Parampara descend upon them and their families. I would now request Swamiji to continue his discourses on Amrita Bindu Upanishad.
Thank you, Manoharji. Om Bhadram Karneڀih Shrunuyama Devaः Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraः Sthirairangai Stuštuvagmsastanubhih Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuः Swasti na Indro Vruddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedaः Swasti nastarkshyo Arishtanemih Swasti no Brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Hari Om. Salutations to one and all. So in the first verse of Amrit Bindu, we saw that mind is of two types, pure and impure. Pure mind is that which is free from kama and sankalpa. Kama there is selfish desire, sankalpa is the fanciful imaginations which are the cause of kama. And the impure mind is that which is filled with this sankalpa and kama. Then it was said that this mind alone is the cause of one's bondage and mind alone is the cause of liberation. So how can the same mind be the cause of both? Is it not contradictory? So it is not in the same, at the same time. It is at different times. In the state of impurity, when the mind is attached to objects, bandhaya vishaya saptaha. Now, obviously, that attachment to objects in this context means the kama and sankalpa are the cause of that. So that mind is attached to sense objects. That mind is bound. That mind is the cause of bondage. And the same mind, when it becomes free from this attachment to objects, becomes a source of liberation. Bandhaya vishaya saktaha muktam nirvishayam smritam. So this line is very important because when we think about it, many times we blame other factors for our situation, for who we are, for what we are going through, how we meet things in life. But here the verse says, mana eva, mind alone, is the cause of the sorrow for a human being and happiness also for human being. So bondage and liberation have different meanings we saw in the earlier session. In simplest meaning, mind is the cause of misery, mind is the cause of happiness. A detached mind is the source of all happiness, attached mind is the cause of misery. Those of you who have heard me, you know I keep making equations just as a memory aid. So our sorrow is directly proportional to our attachment. Greater is our sorrow, greater will be our attachment. And the vice versa. The greater is attachment, greater is the sorrow. And so the vice versa is greater is detachment, greater is happiness. Though people in the world, we think that detachment means sorrow and attachment means happiness. How can I not be attached to my children and my house and my, people and my body and all that? And that is only cause of sorrow. Anybody passing by who is making a comment on me doesn't affect me, but my spouse makes a comment or my child doesn't follow what I say, then I get disturbed. Why? Because there's some attachment, some insistence. So first equation for today is sorrow is directly proportional to attachment and happiness is directly proportional to detachment. Second equation for today is insistence plus resistance is equal to sorrow. That insistence is the attachment. It has to be like this only. And if it is not what I want, if it is not as per insistence, then if it is something else, then there is resistance. Why this came to me? I don't want this. This should not have happened. Both these factors create sorrow. That is bondage. So insistence plus resistance is equal to sorrow. Acceptance plus independence is equal to happiness. So two sets of equations we see. The more we learn to accept life as it comes and the more we are independent, that is nirvishayam. Mind is independent. Now, can the mind be independent of objects completely? We will see as we go along. But why is it that the mind is depending on objects? That is first we have to see. Bandhaya vishaya sakta, it is said. Mind which is dependent on objects is the cause of sorrow. So, why do we depend? Because we don't, so we think that first of all, happiness is not my nature. That is the ignorance of the self, ignorance of my nature as happiness. That is the root cause. Now, based on that ignorance, then I think I am this. So there's false identification with this entity, Mr. So-and-so. This is only a tool, but I don't know that. I think I am this. Then I feel incomplete because this by itself is incomplete. And when I identify with this, then there's a world separate from me. So when I see that objects are other than me, When I see somebody eating something nice and feeling so happy, and somebody is watching some movie, somebody is playing some sport, somebody is listening to some music, and I see all this, then based on my own conditionings, my own past karma, plus my new perception, there are strong likes and dislikes that I develop. And then I superimpose. If I eat this, I will be happy. If I go there, I will be happy. If I become this, I will be happy. And also the other side, I don't like this. This makes me miserable. I don't want to eat this. I don't want to go there. I don't want to meet this person. So raga and dvesha we develop, and then we superimpose happiness and sorrow based on that. This is the reason why we get bound. All this is happening first in the mind. Ignorance of the self, then thinking of oneself as this body, mind, intellect, then I feel incomplete. And then because I feel I am this, then I see the world as separate from me, step 4. Then when I see the world as separate from me, then I, based on my own past vasanas, I transact and I do the perception. So that raga and dvesha makes me superimpose. 6th step. Happiness is in that, sorrow is from that. Now, whatever I seek, whatever I feel is having happiness, I run behind that. So I will desire those things, I will think about it, then I will act. And whatever I think is a source of misery, I will run away from it. So now some things I want, some things I don't want, and now I'm dependent on this. All my own imagination. No, Swamiji, it is really true. It is there in that object. If it was in the object, then everybody should have had same experience. Cigarette should have given happiness to all. A nice, let us say, cake should have given happiness to all. Forget all. The same person at different point in time, different experience one has. First bite of cake, oh, wonderful. 20th bite of cake, not same happiness as first one. And at some point, if one becomes vegan, or let us say, then one says, no, I don't want it. It has milk, it has sugar, it has this, it has that. I don't want any of this. So object doesn't have it. It is our mind. So if you see in the commentary, Guruji has written very nicely, there is Satya Adhyas, which means that object is separate from me. Then there is Shobhana Adhyas, based on my likes and dislikes. And then there is Sukha or Dukkha Adhyas, that there is happiness in that. That's how we get bound. And the source is, I don't know who am I. So when I don't know who am I, it continuously plays, this entire cycle goes on, and we are trapped in the cycle of birth and death. Now just imagine what a trick our own mind is playing with us, just because it doesn't know its own nature as happiness, and it has become extroverted. All source of happiness is here, but it is searching everywhere outside. And so here it is, bandhaya vishaya saktaha. And what is this vishaya? Is not only some sense object. Vishaya includes everything. Other than the real I, everything is vishaya. So we seek happiness in the body also. This body, which is a source of, which if we actually do vivek and see what is this body, except being a tool for sadhana or achieving things in the world, doing, exhausting our karma, what else it is? It is a bundle of 5 elements, 7 dhatus. Someone said this body has enough iron to make some 10 iron nails. It has enough lime to make 3 cakes of lime soap. It has enough, let us say, sugar to sweeten 5 cups of sugar, 5 cups of tea. And it has enough some phosphorus and all that to make some 1 matchbox. If you put all this together, you won't get even 150 rupees. Of course, so many things we do with this body, we achieve many things, we can serve, those things are there, but moha for this body. And how much one does in this world, all based on this body. How much pain one gives to people also based on this body and the color of this body. This is skin pigmentation. For that, what violence happens in the world? Gender, how much abuse happens in the world? It's just same 5 elements in 2 different genders. That is all. Of some physical differences. Beyond that, what? Both of them are burnt or buried at the time of death. Both of them are made up of inert 5 elements. Both the things will stink by itself. The body, it will stink. That's why I have to keep washing all the time. That is this body. But mind projects. That is called sankalpa. So this says that this Vishaya means everything. Anything other than the subject is object of people, situation, this body, even in certain thoughts. How much pleasure one derives and pain one derives only by thought. The greatest persecution in the world is thought persecution. Our own thoughts persecute us, and based on our thoughts, we persecute others. With our words, with our actions, we persecute ourselves and others. From where these words and actions are coming? From thought. And thought is coming from desire. Desire is coming from past vasanas, impressions. They are coming from ignorance. See the impact ignorance has. And it's just getting away with it. Life after life. Because it remains undetected as the root cause. A lot of these murder mysteries and all that. That murderer will be some unknown, mysterious person who doesn't come into the forefront. Somebody else it is, and the blame is put on this person, and the case sometimes appears to be solved, but actual murderer is somebody else. Same way, this mind of ours is like that. Mind filled with raga and dvesha is the real murderer. Is a culprit, appears to be culprit. The real culprit is ignorance. Sitting quietly. Till we don't enquire, we will not even know that there's something else, which is the cause of sorrow. Upanishad is to handle that. Upanishad has found out the root cause of sorrow, and with the right knowledge, it will destroy that, so that the entire Anartha Parampara will get destroyed. Anartha Parampara means all that, what we just said in the beginning. Ignorance leads to false identification, this whole thing. Destroyed. So Vishaya means anything that is other than I, the subject. Bandhaya Vishaya Sakta. If I am attached to anything other than the I, and the best part is the real I can't get attached to. So whatever I'm attached to is not the I. So Bandhaya Vishaya Sakta. That's why Gurudev used to say that don't put the key of your happiness in someone else's pocket. Well, that's what we are doing. Any person can say something or not say something, do something, not do something. Any situation in life can happen, not happen, and my happiness goes up and down with that. How many people, how many objects have the key of my happiness? Think about it. They can control anytime. And these Vishayas also are very powerful. They have a deep friendship amongst themselves. The sense objects. In this context, I'm saying sense objects, Vishaya. Because one, it may start with, but it will bring all the others also. They believe in cooperative existence, coexistence. You just imagine, rainy season, suppose one is watching some television. Then one is only watching television. Then slowly the desire comes, let me have some, whatever, popcorn, some chips or something. Then slowly some cool drink. And slowly let me relax my back and spread my foot. So the sparsha says, relax your back, spread your foot, sleep aram se and then watch. The tongue says, let us eat something. The eyes are anyway seeing, the ears are anyway hearing. And then phone is anyway there to engage my hands, and I continuously keep engaging while doing all this. So each sense object brings everything else many times. So they are a team, sense objects. They will attack. Continuously their attack goes on. The mind which is detached becomes very alert. May enjoy the world, but no attachment, no compulsive behavior. The objects cannot tempt that person, nor the likes and dislikes will make that person act out of that compulsion. That person is free. So bandhaya vishaya saktaha muktam nirvishayam smritam. That's why in this Ashtavakra Gita, Ashtavakra Gita actually is one of the highest texts of Sanatana Dharma. It's like Mandukya Upanishad. One should not read just like that. One has to prepare the base nicely and then do Ashtavakra Gita. Then one will understand and even experience the truth indicated there. In the first chapter, Janak Maharaj is told by Ashtavakra Muni, Muktimicchasi chet tata vishayan vishavat tyaja. Kshama santosha piyusha. You cultivate the nectar of forgiveness, contentment, all that, and give up this poison of sense object. Give up sense objects like as though they are poison. For whom it is said, those who seek mukti, mukti michhasi chet. If you seek liberation, reject these objects. Because one has seen enough. We saw in the first class what is the mindset of this seeker, mumukshu, who has seen the world enough. Now the person wants to realize that state of fulfillment. To that person, Ashtavakra Muni says, and imagine Janak Maharaj, he continues to rule the kingdom, but in his mind there is no attachment to any sense object whatsoever. That is his glory. Oh, Swamiji, I will also attempt that. Janak Maharaj Vairagya is absolutely different. We can't take just the example of his. In our situation, if we want to master our mind, then it is important to be away from the objects for some time, especially those which I am very attached to. So if I am very attached to, let us say, food, sweet food, sweets, I am very attached to sweets. I have to be away from sweets. I can't have sweets all around me and say that I am going to try. It is better to be amidst the objects of attachment and then learn detachment. First you learn detachment, then you come amidst the object, and it's acceptable. Without doing that, it's only some escape, some excuse one is giving. Then slowly the mind says, 3 days you have not eaten sweet, today one you can eat. That's how the mind will tempt, and then it falls. So initially it is important to be away from sense object, especially the object of my attachment. So what is the homework that I can do? What are the things on which I am dependent for my happiness? The moment I create that equation in my mind that happiness is in that object, in this person, in that situation, I've already created a cause for sorrow. Just think about it. Earlier we heard what Gautam Buddha said, every pleasure is pain in disguise. Now think about it. Every fanciful imagination is the seed for sorrow. The moment I fancifully imagine that this object has happiness, that person has happiness, this situation has happiness, I've already sown the seeds of sorrow. Why? Because first of all, that means I'm not happy right now. No, Swamiji, I'm happy right now, but I want more. That itself shows fulfillment is not there, and I'm thinking it is somewhere else. So that I am not happy right now, then I need something else for happiness, and that something else is other than me. That is the second reason. Now when it is other than me, there is uncertainty. Will I get, will I not get? Even if I get, how long will it last? That is also uncertain. And if I don't get, anger will anyway come. So either ways it is misery. Think about it. Oh, then how to live in this world? Without sankalpa, we can live in this world. It does not mean that there will be no desire in the mind, there will be no joy in life. No. In the Gita, Bhagavan says, Sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvan asheshatah. All the desires born out of this fanciful imagination, you drop them. That is actually called living life as it comes. Take things as they come, leave them as they go. If somebody gives me something nice, somebody brought, many years back, somebody brought that dragon fruit and they gave me. They cut that dragon fruit and they gave. I have no idea what that fruit is. I ate it also. Then a lot of excitement, you're asking, how is it? How is it? How is it? I said, it's fine, it's okay. And they were like, oh, it's okay. That's all. Because in their mind, they are thinking that dragon fruit is such an exotic fruit and so amazing, it tastes so good and this and that. And now they are expecting some response like that from me. Now, I don't have that conditioning in my head. What is coming to me, I'm eating that, full stop. What is the response I'm experiencing as it is? Khatam ho gaya kaam. There's no desire for it before, there's no desire for it after. Done. So it is not that one can't enjoy. One can. In fact, that one will enjoy that as it is only properly. Otherwise, one is enjoying as per one's imagination and not how it is. So it is not that all the desires will be dropped, one will become disinterested, uninterested. No. But all the dependencies, when they drop, then there is great happiness. One experiences great lightness also. There is no imagination, no projection. One lives life as it is. One knows basic information one has registered, but one is not brooding over it. Suppose somebody gives, let us say, brinjal. If the mind has a certain, if like Gurudev never liked brinjal, but when somebody brings brinjal, he will eat it. He doesn't have disgust for it, and he doesn't fret and fume that, why have you made this brinjal? Nothing. Based on some past samskar, the mind has registered brinjal is good or brinjal is not good. Or some memory, some impression is there. If this brinjal tastes like this, apple tastes like this. So one knows that. That's a functional knowledge. And even if there is some positive, negative judgment or a conclusion, it is not compulsive. When it becomes compulsive, that is called raga and dvesha, where it will disturb that mind of that person. And that person will be in a resistance mode or in a complete attachment mode. If I get what I like, then I eat maximum and I even don't bother about health or anything else because I got it, eat it. And if I get something I don't like, then avoid and get angry and get upset. That doesn't happen when a person is detached. So sankalpa prabhavan kaman, in the Gita, Bhagavan says, drop all those desires which are born of fanciful imaginations and enjoy life as it comes. So we can make that list. What are the things on which I have fancifully projected my happiness? It can be on things, it can be on people, it can be on behavior of people. If they behave like this, then they are acceptable to me. If they don't behave like this, they're not acceptable to me. They should always conform to what I say. Now that's a false expectation in my head. I should be able to make everybody happy. Again, false expectation. Nobody should ever criticize me. False expectation. All these are fanciful imaginations also. Many of these, when we make the list, then we know how many people, how many things have the key of my happiness. Bandhaya Vishaya Sakta. And then the effort is to slowly detach from that, which means I may have to cut my contact with it for some time till I gain a certain clarity. So suppose I am very attached to sweets, then I need to be away from sweets physically, actually. And at that time, what do? I should think about reversing my conditioning. How much value I have added to that sweet, that I plus this sweet is equal to happiness. Now see the pain that that sweet brings. That sugar, what it will do to the body, what all imbalance it will create, how mind becomes so weak, cravings increase, weight I put on. Imagine, not imagine, meaning think, reflect. That is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. One has to see the painful side. So physically be away from it, then see the painful side of it, and third step, find some substitute, a better substitute, if that is required. In some cases, no substitute is required. One can just become happy with oneself in the quiet moments of sadhana, experiencing joy of sadhana. That's enough. But some cases where there's an addictive, there's a habit which is formed and the body has certain withdrawal symptoms, then some substitute may need to be found. Then find substitutes which are more healthy alternatives. Then slowly one has detached from it. So bandhaya vishaya saktaha muktam nirvishayam smritam. So a person who does this vivek understands that in bondage there is no happiness. In independence there is happiness. In freedom there is happiness. You know, there is a nice story that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to say that once there was a bird which was flying. Very happily the bird was flying, enjoying its flight, beautiful breeze. And this bird saw that there is a piece of meat somewhere. Now, as the bird saw that piece of meat, the bird swooped down, picked up that meat and flew up. The moment that bird picked up that meat and flew up, so many crows started chasing it like anything. That bird was panicking, trying to go here, there, anywhere to escape from these crows. And so many of them, they are just as though, they are attacking that bird. The bird got completely petrified. At that moment, what happened? That bird left the beak opened and the piece of meat fell down. The moment that piece of meat fell down, all the crows went to that piece of meat. The bird was relieved. Now think about it. It's a very simple example, but a very powerful one. Our nature is happiness. Our nature is peace. Our nature is love. But some desire gets into the head. That's the piece of meat. And a host of thoughts, agitations, disturbances, everything will start coming after that. I'm talking about fanciful imagination, those type of desires. Then gone. This peace of mind is lost. And if one feels, see in that example, the limitation of the example is the piece of meat fell down. So the crows went there. In our case, we are not able to drop those desires. We hold on to them. Even if there are so many thought agitations and all kinds of challenges we have, still we will hold on. And get more and more stressed, tired, exhausted, but not drop the desire. And there, what happens? We see in that example again, that bird was having only one piece of meat. In our case, we already have one desire, then another one, then third one, then fourth one. So many desires we are having at the same time, adding up all, and each one brings its host of agitations along with it. How is this mind going to have peace? And amidst all this, without dropping desires, I want peace. That is not possible. Selfish desires have to be dropped. If I want eternal peace, supreme peace, some temporary relief I want, then we can go anywhere, divert the mind, do something. And that's what people do. Engross themselves into some music, into some dance, into some drinking, into some spa, some travel, Something one keeps doing, which is only a temporary relief. This Vedantic seeker doesn't want relief. Vedantic seeker wants cure. One has seen through all the relief methods. That person says there is only one method. This mind has to be freed from this attachment to objects, the sankalpa. All the desires born out of sankalpa, they have to be dropped. There is no other solution. If that bird keeps adding more and more pieces of meat, more and more crows will come. The only method is drop. Then that bird will be happy. Each of us is happy before. Then one desire comes. Then we become miserable. It's up to us how much we are able to drop. Internally, our dependence. So that is what the next verse says. Third verse says this. Yato nirvishayasyasya manaso muktirishyate ato nirvishayam nityam mana karyam mumukshuna. Mumukshuna, a person who is intensely seeking freedom. One who has known, I have wandered away, far away from my true nature. Now I don't know. I am lost in this world full of attachments. I have to retrace back. That desire to get free, get back to my true self, that desire is most important. Holding on to that desire, all other desires can be dropped. So mumukshuna, the seeker, what does that seeker do? The seeker must continuously practice nirvishayam nityam manakaryam, continuously practice this sadhana of making the mind free from these attachments to objects. See, when it says the person should make the mind free from sense objects, we saw in the first shloka that mind is a flow of thoughts. So objects will come. But the dependence on those objects is what is meant. And then the psychological dependency of happiness from it, that is what is meant. That has to, when the mind has to be freed from it. Without objects, the mind will not be able to think anything. When we live in the world, objects are going to be there around us and we will also think about them. But psychological dependency can be dropped fully, which is what he says, Yato nirvishayasya manaso muktirishyate. The mind which is free from these desires for sense objects, that mind is liberated. What is mukti? The one definition of mukti is this: mind free from all dependencies is free. Nirvishayasya asya manasaha muktihi. That mind is free. This one shloka is the main purpose of all sadhanas, and it can be the mission of our life itself. What is the mission of life? To realize the self. How to realize the self? In the state of contemplation, drop all the objects, and while living in the world, drop all dependencies, interact with the objects only functionally. Where we only use them, but we don't depend. So many things we do like that in the world. We use, but we don't depend on it. We leave it when the use is over. You know, so many things, like suppose we take water. Now we drink the water, we keep the glass. We use a car. You travel in the car, you leave the car and go to the destination. Go in a flight. The chair on which I am sitting, the seat where I am sitting, we leave it and we keep moving. We may create this attachment to these things, and that's a different matter. The mind is capable of creating attachment anywhere. That is a different matter. But the point is, in the world also, there are so many things where we just use without creating any dependency. So while living in the world with all objects, that is the attitude that I am only transacting functionally. I have no dependencies. If they are there, fine. If they are not there, fine. My internal state of equilibrium and happiness can't depend on them. And in the state of deep contemplation, literally one drops all objects from the mind. This making the mind free from all sense objects and all dependencies is the purpose of all sadhanas. You think about it. And such a mind is what is required for meditation or contemplation on the self. So verse 4 and 5 will tell us about that. So now here, when a person wants, one has understood that, I have forgotten who am I, that ignorance of the self, and I am lost in the world, far away, and caught in the cycle of birth and death. One wants to come back, return plan. Will we ever go to a destination without a return plan? Assuming that my house is, let us say, in Mumbai, I may travel across the world, but at some point I will return. No, my home is here. In the beginning, I may not know a return plan. I may go thinking that let me travel, let me see, I will take it as it goes. But at some point, I will make a return plan. Who takes up a journey without any return plan at all? We are doing that. Lost, we have gone away from the home, traveling life after life, so many jivas, so many embodiments we have taken, so many forms we have taken, so many worlds we have been into, but there's no return plan. These examples can make us really get Vivek and Vairagya more intensely. Why are we not feeling homesick? Think about that. How deep are our attachments that they don't make us feel homesick? Otherwise, people will feel homesick or not. One travels far away from the house, lives away from the family, goes somewhere, does some work, and one feels, I want to go back. I want to go home. I'm feeling homesick. Why are we not feeling homesick? We have come out of our nature. We saw in the first class, mind's nature is purity. We have come out from that state of purity into impurities, agitations, problems. Still the desire to return to the source is very weak. This mumukshutvam is still not there. Because some temporary pleasure, for that temporary pleasure, I am willing to bear so much of pain and sorrow. What a trade-off it is. Everywhere else, our mind is very capable of doing this calculation and calculating how much will I get, what will I get, how much will I invest, what will be the return, when should I invest, for how long should I invest, all that. What about investment of the mind? What all effort we are putting to get the object of our attachment and preserve it and then enjoy it, and what are we getting out of it? Momentary pleasures. And a whole lot of pain, which overrides actually the pleasure. But still one is not ready to leave. That is called Maya, the power of Maya. So here it is. This mumukshu understands that mind has to be freed from sankalpa and kama. That is the only method. There is no sorrow from coming from world by itself from outside. It is my superimposition. It is my rag and dvesh. It is my sankalpa that is causing all these problems. I have to drop those. So this sankalpa and kama, they need to be dropped, which is what he says, yato nirvishayasyasya manaso muktirishyate. Now all those desires which are free from sankalpa, they are not binding. Now, for example, the basic desires, natural desires which are there for maintenance of the body, that requires food, that requires water, that requires some clothes, that requires some shelter. In pursuit of those, one works hard, one will get also. By itself, those will not create bondage. But insistence on certain ways, certain type of food only, certain type of house only, in a certain type of place only, with certain type of people only, those are all our insistences. Again, I am saying, those who have gone through all this and got enough vairagya, they have to drop all these cravings. Those who are not yet come there, those who still have to see the world, there's nothing wrong to aspire for great achievements and big, bungalow somewhere and then some fat paycheck and whatever one wants. That is a part of one's evolution one will go through. But one who has seen is a mumukshu. Mumukshu has seen. And if that mumukshu wants realization, there is no other solution. One has to stick to the fundamental things and drop all the other fanciful imaginations. Those desires can be dropped and they can be substituted with selfless ones to serve, to give, to contribute. So when he says here, this mind has to be made free, see, complete freedom from all desires is the highest state. Right now we are in the totally attached state. From this state to that state, we can't directly jump. There has to be in between. A step will be there in between, or gradually one will progress. What is that step in between? Is this. The one has to stick to the functional desires, reduce the psychological projections, fanciful imaginations, and replace all that energy with service, selfless service, helping people, sharing the happiness, making the others' happiness more important. So whether it is a family life, whether it is work, a profession that I'm engaged in, whether I'm serving my country, whether I'm doing some social service, in all these, I can actually put the other first and reduce my self-importance. No, Swami, the opposite person also has to do, then only I will be able to do. Now that's where we get stuck. That means the key of my moksha is in the opposite person's hand. I am selfless because I am convinced by it. Whether the opposite person is doing or not, that's none of my lookout. In my roles, whatever I need to do appropriately, I will do. But personally, I don't depend on other things, people's responses for my happiness, for my evolution. I don't have to stop being selfless because others are selfish. That is an illogical argument, actually. Everybody is selfish, so why should I be selfless? And everybody is thinking like that, then how there will be selflessness? The more mature one and the more intelligent one, the person who wants to evolve, that person has to take the first step for oneself, not for others. And so that is a via media, in between. To fulfill the desires which are necessities without fanciful imaginations, to serve selflessly, to contribute towards the betterment, and genuinely not wanting some ego boost or some recognition, glory. People may do that out of their habit or their feeling, but one is not doing it for that. And so when one does that, slowly, one transforms the selfish desires into selfless ones. One expands the desires. We see in the Gita, etc., it comes. So if I want to eat sweets, before I eat sweet, let me distribute it to 100 people first and find the joy. There's so much more joy to see those 100 people eating that sweet and the smile on their face. Compared to that joy, this pleasure of the eating that sweet is very limited. When we start enjoying the subtler joys, the lower ones will drop. And then that's how one grows out, and slowly the subtlest one is the supreme, where there is no dependency on anything then. The joy of being quiet, the joy of doing sadhana, the joy of observing the breath, the joy of chanting the mantra, the joy of doing upvas, vrata, tirtha yatra, all these sadhanas are to help me to experience that inner bliss. Even a glimpse of that, as we continuously do, a glimpse of that is enough. How that mind will slowly start becoming free from attachments and imaginations. So all sadhanas are for that. Why we should remember this is, otherwise the sadhanas also will become the means to bind us. Mind is very tricky. One does Tirtha Yatra. Tirtha Yatra is to be done so that the bhav is that I am a sadhak, I want to realize the Supreme, or I want to have darshan of Bhagavan, so I will live in tapasya, I will live in self-control, I will remember the Lord at all times, I will stand in the line. Let us say if I have to stand in the line for darshan, then I will do japa of Bhagavan. And if there's some particular tithi on which I land, Ekadashi, I will do upvas on that day. So the whole idea is this body, mind, intellect, they get disciplined, they get trained to think of the Supreme, to think of the self, and withdraw the attention from other things. Now, when we don't do this with that intention, then what happens? One goes to Rishikesh, and today it is, in some ways, I feel sad. It's my personal opinion. I mean, don't take it very, I'm not generalizing, it's my personal opinion. That place which was meant for sadhana, today people go there for anything and everything. To do bungee jumping, India's highest bungee jumping is there. To do whitewater rafting, or to go and eat in the chotiwala and then take a photo and tick that one of my life goals is achieved. What all happens there now? So the purpose of the Tirtha Yatra is gone now. Now it is not a Tirtha anymore. Now it becomes like a destination where one just travels, enjoys and comes back. Even one goes to Chardham, etc. For a few moments, one's mind is in that, in the temple, maybe have darshan, but most of the time one is doing other sightseeing and taking some photographs and taking some videos and enjoying some food out there and finding out what is a special food here and what can I eat and what can I enjoy and all that stuff. So this mind can make even the means of freedom into sources of bondage. Upvas. How many people do upvas with the attitude that I must sit near Bhagwan? Upa means near, vasa means to sit. So that day when I'm not eating food, the pranic energy is going upwards. That's the purpose of upvas. Otherwise, the pranic energy goes downwards to digest the food. Upvas, when I'm not eating food, the pranic energy will automatically go upwards, and with that urdhva retas, that energy going upwards, when I do japa, when I remember Bhagavan, I do chanting, it has a very different power. Now, that is a sadhana. It is to reduce the ego, it is to think more and more of the divine. But so much upvas happens in the world many times for the kirti, for glory. I did 8 days of upvas, I did 15 days of upvas, I did every Ekadashi in this whole year. And then there is show, then there is some function, and then there are people who will come and they will greet and they will. So I'm not saying it is wrong completely. I'm just saying that the purpose of sadhana is to reduce the ego. It should not be to boost the ego. And only that person knows that whether it is being done with attitude of increasing the ego or reducing the ego. So when he says here, yato nirvishayasya manaso muktirishyate, the meaning is that the mind which is free from desire of sense objects, that mind becomes free. So no desire for recognition, name, fame, glory, enjoyment through sadhana. It is to dissolve all this raga and dvesha that sadhana is done. So if I want to free my mind from objects, what should I do? One, that's why we have to do sadhana specifically. One part of the sadhana is to sit quietly and withdraw the mind. So I can do japa walking also, or I can do japa by, when I'm waiting in a line also, I can do japa at any time. Each one of us have enough opportunities to do japa. That does not compensate for actually sitting down, closing the eyes, withdrawing the attention and doing the japa. Because in the first one, I'm still engaging my senses. In the second one, when I'm sitting quietly, I'm withdrawing the senses. There is a great impact that has on making the mind free from sense objects. So to make the mind free from sense object, every day, sometime one has to sit and learn to withdraw the attention and focus on the self or on God. So that's first way to make the mind free from sense objects. Second way to make the mind free from sense objects is also, again, it is to sit quietly and focus on the breath. Inhalation, exhalation, and gap between these two. In pranayam, there is, when we take the breath in, purak, then there is antakumbhak, we hold the breath. At that moment, if we pay attention to that moment, no objects are there, no thoughts are there, the breath also is held, it is still, the body is still, the breath is still, the mind is still, the intellect is still, one will realize the truth. Samadhi happens through that kumbhak. And 2 times kumbhak can be done with every breath. Look at that. So every breath is giving me 2 opportunities to free the mind from sense objects. Just imagine what Bhagavan has done. Imagine what opportunities for sadhana we have. And then we say, my life is so busy, I don't have time to sadhana. You are breathing, na? With every breath, 2 opportunities are there to do sadhana. While holding the breath, after taking the breath in, I hold anta kumbhak. And then I exhale, and then again I hold, that is bahish kumbhak. So purak, anta kumbhak, rechak, bahish kumbhak. If I do this even 10 minutes, because somebody may say, I don't know the self, I don't know God. Okay, then follow this method. That consciousness is the real enlivener in us, because of which everything is happening. One will realize that. So mind can be made free. So 2 methods we saw, which are exclusively sitting, withdrawing the attention, focusing, and then doing. And through the day, one can keep focusing on the breathing. Nobody prevents that. Third method is take up the other sadhanas, like vrata, maun vrat. Now, if I maintain silence, so many things I will not think, because I don't want to verbalize, I don't want to speak, I am not interacting with people, their thoughts, I am not taking insight, so mind will become relatively free. And if at that time when I am in Maun, I am doing some adhyatmic sadhana, or I am, doing some japa or any such thing, again it is helpful. So take up some other sadhanas. Vrata can be done, upvas. So I will not eat food. Again, the thinking about food, etc. will stop. Then one thinks about Bhagavan. Yatra, yajna, havan, puja, bhajan, all these spiritual practices are to make the mind free from sense objects. Then, so 3 things I am saying. First one is sit quietly, meditate on self, or chant the name of God, or do any sadhana connected to God, where the senses are withdrawn. Second, focus on the breath. Third, take up other sadhanas where withdrawal is not necessary, where with the engagement I am able to have the bhav and remembrance of the Lord, where senses are engaged. Fourth, while engaging with the sense objects and people, etc., try to neutralize likes and dislikes. So if I don't like brinjal, I should eat brinjal. If I don't like getting up early in the morning, I should get up early in the morning. If I don't like to talk to a certain person, I should talk to that person. So that this dvesha gets dissolved. If I am feeling very hurt and my ego is not allowing me to forgive, I should forgive. That's the sadhana. Because this raga and dvesha are causing all imaginations and attachments. That has to be removed. So what I am attached to, I withdraw from that we saw earlier, and what I am having aversion towards, I engage in that, and I let go, I forgive where I am feeling some pain or hurt. So if I do some of these things, the mind will learn to become free from this sense objects. One more thing I can do is stick to what is my duty, whether I like it or not. Kartavya karma. And what is not my duty, don't bother, because there is not enough time to do my duty only. Where will I do things which are not my duty? But most of the time we are doing opposite. What is my duty, I am not doing. What is not my duty, I am going on doing. So many things we bother about people, society, vyavahar, and we comment about their life. This person did that, person did this. Where is the time? We have no time enough to do our own sadhana, exercise and japa and daily duties and taking care of family, etc. In that, why am I adding extra other things? So kartavya karma. So in the Gita, Bhagavan says, niyatam kuru karmatvam. Oh Arjun, do your obligatory duties. Stick to only that. Niyata karma. Reduce this kamya karma, this selfish desire prompted activities, and completely drop nishiddha karma. What is prohibited, just drop it. If I follow that much, mind will learn to become free from dependencies. So for today, we will stop here. Now with such a mind which has become free from dependencies, what to do? Because remember, our root cause is ignorance. That has to be removed. So that we will take up in the next session. Let us do the arati, and if there are any questions, we will take up. Is there any questions? One can raise the hand after the arati and we will take that up. Manohar ji, Gopal ji, please go ahead. Announce the arati yajmans and then do the arati. We can't hear the sound. Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki jai.
Hari Om. Today's Arati Yajamans Hemanti Vadva, Srimati Hemanti Vadva and Srimati Ila Desai. May the blessings of Pujya Gurudev, Pujya Gurudi and the Guru Shishya Parampara descend on them and their families. I'd just like to make one small announcement that we will not be meeting next Friday for Amrita Bindu Upanishad.
So I will make a change in that. Yes, we will be meeting next Friday.
Okay.
Because there was a program earlier So there is a little bit of a change in that. So we will do on 1st July also the Amrit Bindu class.
Okay. Hari Om Swamiji. Malati Shreyan had raised a hand.
Yeah, I am unmuted.
Hari Om Swamiji. Pranam to everyone. Swamiji, mind is the cause of sorrow. Mind can be your best friend, or mind can be your worst enemy. Adding to that, Swamiji, in a family, organization, or country, there is always an individual karma or a combined karma, which one has to go through till the higher reasoning or independence and evolution does not come. We go through the sorrow or the bond instead of freedom and happiness. Swamiji, astrology or the study of horoscopes and palmistry is also a science which talks about the same. Your opinion, Swamiji?
See, astrology, Jyotisha as a science, so Jyotisha as a science is to understand the effect of the planets, to understand the universe. If you see in Vedas, the science of Jyotisha is meant for that. And it is a science where matter will affect matter. The predictive science of each individual horoscope, etc., has come much later. In the Vedic time, the predictions, etc., were not the main focus of Jyotish Shastra. Their understanding was their objective was to understand what is the universe, what are the planets, what is happening out there, so that the effect of those on this can be understood. And objective is then to, based on that effect, how we can steadily contemplate and realize the self. So that's the power of the Jyotish actually. The effect of the planets and then the time based on this. What is the effect of matter? What is the effect of such time on each of us? And then how one can contemplate. So it is a subjective science, no doubt. I mean, it's a predictive science, no doubt, but it's not a defining science that if what is said there 100% will happen exactly as it is only. Because human being is blessed with Purushartha Kshamata and one has the Buddhi, one can put efforts and create a new future for oneself. As per the law of karma, whatever one has to face that one cannot avoid, that's a prarabdha karma. But the prarabdha karma also has 3 levels. One is prabal prarabdha karma, which one will not be able to change. One is a madhyam, which one can change with great effort. And one is the very manda. It is simple, very, very small, simple it is. So that can be changed with much more effort. So Purushartha is always greater because prarabdha is Purushartha is the cause, prarabdha or destiny is the effect. And astrology can only tell that these are possibilities. Astrology cannot say this alone will happen. In a common man's life, there are chances that this person will go through some of these because the person doesn't exercise Purushartha. But if one gets the right knowledge and one does satsang, one puts that Purushartha, many things can change. So that is what Vedanta is saying, that mind is a cause of bondage. When there is ignorance, when I don't know, when I don't even know that what Purushartha I can do, how I can go against my own impulsiveness, my own compulsiveness, then it is a cause of bondage. And then when I get this right knowledge, then that becomes the cause of my liberation also. So that's why knowledge is very, very important. And with anchoring in that knowledge, one can do Purushartha. That will become the cause of freedom. Yes, Aditi.
Hari Om Swamiji, my question is on the existence of mind itself. So you said mind is a flow of thoughts. Is mind like a space where there is a continuous flow of thoughts, and these thoughts are attached to a desire? So you're thinking of one desire and then the next desire. But then when the flow of thoughts stops, is mind like it really is nothing and then there's no mind? Or is it that it's just a space where there is a continuous flow of thoughts, but when we stop the thoughts, the mind is just a space where we can then reflect on our true self?
So what Vedanta says is mind by itself as an entity does not exist. The thoughts continuously flow. So in that example that Puja Gurudev gave, the river is a continuous flow of thoughts, a river is a continuous flow of water, so mind is a continuous flow of thoughts. Now, the thoughts are continuously changing, but there has to be a changeless substratum. Just like the water is flowing, there is a river bed which remains constant. So actually there is nothing called river. If you technically see, there is no river, there is only water which is flowing. Gallons and gallons of water which is just flowing. Same way, these thoughts, they arise in the subtle body. So we say that yes, there is a subtle body. That subtle body is made up of 5 elements, and those 5 elements are space, air, fire, water, earth. So that is the texture, that is the composition of that subtle body. But it is continuously flowing, and the changeless substratum is consciousness. If that flow stops, one realizes there is nothing called mind as an entity. You know, like the if you see in the many festival seasons, what happens? They create a whole image with bulbs. Let us say Ganesh festival comes, then the whole image of Lord Ganesha will be created, where the bulbs are arranged in a specific way, and these bulbs will have light, so they will keep on blinking, and their timing is done in such a way that it will look like, Lord Ganesha is there and his hand is here, and then this rays of light which are coming out from his hand, and there's some aura and there's some circle which is going on round behind him. If you actually see, there is no entity called Ganesha there, and there is no form. It is each individual bulb which is just blinking. So Ramana Maharshi says in the Upadeshar that manasam tu kim margane krite. If you actually inquire into what is the mind, all this flow of thoughts can be divided into 2 categories. One is the thoughts about the world, another is the thoughts about I, Mr. So and so. That Mr. So and so is what we call as the mind, the jiva, the individuality, the ego, all that. And this individuality appears very strong to us right now. This individuality, if we inquire into who is this real I mean, who is this small I patatyaham nija vicharanam, he says. It will just dissolve, because there is no real entity called Mr. I. So that is the inquiry, that's the self-inquiry, and that self-inquiry will lead us to understand that this mind as an psychological entity is an illusion. It does not exist. Even those functional thoughts which exist, they are all individual thoughts. They are just there. And they are there because we are having a certain identification with the body, with the identity, so they are there. If we drop this identification, they just disappear. They are just not there. Like in the state of deep sleep, we are not identified with the waking entity, dream entity, then there are no thoughts. What exists in that state is consciousness. And of course, there is ignorance. I don't know who am I, so ignorance is there. But otherwise, there is no entity called mind in that state. So many times it happens even in the waking state. When we are fully absorbed in the work we are doing, we are not aware of who am I, what am I, none of that. Where the mind is fully absorbed. So this distinct psychological entity is a myth. It does not exist. Only when we don't know that, then we think it is a reality, and then we further identify with the body. So thoughts are not anything really tangible. That's why they are subtle body. And we call them as they are made up of 5 elements to make us aware that thoughts are not by themselves sentient. They have borrowed sentiency from consciousness. That consciousness alone appears as all these. By itself, there is nothing called thoughts also. Consciousness only appears as the world also, and consciousness only appears as the thoughts about the world also. So it is a play of one thing. But we don't know that from this standpoint at the moment. So to lift ourselves from body identification, from mind identification, it is said this mind is made up of flow of thoughts, and it is made up of 5 subtle elements. and slowly the objective is to detach from that mind and realize that oneness with the consciousness. Then one will realize there is no mind, there is no individuality, there is no world, none of that exists.
The question from Gitanjali Soham, may I please ask how to choose between Nitya Karma, my duty as a mother, and my desire to listen more to remove the ignorance that I have inside? For example, just today for the last 25 minutes of the talk, I had to come out of the room as my older child became too persistent for needing something, even after I said I'll give it to him after 2 minutes, 25 minutes. So is it wrong to prioritize my desire over my duty?
So there is nothing. So here, in that example specifically, that there are different options. There's nothing specifically only right or wrong. In the example there, either the child learns to have persistence, and there's nothing wrong in that. The child will learn persistence if you don't give immediately and give after 25 minutes. The child also will learn to respect the boundaries that you set, saying for this time, don't disturb me, I will give anything after this. And if you have gone and done it, then with the intention of doing your duty, you are doing it. So there's nothing wrong in that. Now, the main question, apart from the incident, is it wrong to prioritize my desire over my duty? See, this my desire here is not a desire which will strengthen my selfishness. It is my desire to gain knowledge which will drop my selfishness, which will drop my ego. And it is not wrong to prioritize that, especially in the day when full day, most of the time one is doing things as a duty towards others. Sometime in the day one has duty towards oneself also, and the greatest duty is to know the self. So if sincerely one is doing that, then it is nothing wrong at all. It is not a ego boosting exercise. It's a ego busting exercise where one is listening and then trying to absorb the knowledge and trying to then apply it in one's life. So there's nothing wrong if one prioritizes, and that can be explained to people also, that for this 1 hour is my time, it's me time. Rest of the time I'm there to serve. So that one has balanced it appropriately also. And if we go still deeper into that, then there are, have we not seen people who actually renounce the world and go? Are they doing anything selfish? Did Gautam Buddha be selfish when, did he become selfish when he went to the forest, leaving his family, his wife Yashodhara and his child Rahul? Upanishads are very clear. Yadahareva virajet, tadahareva pravrajet. That day when you get enough vairagya, you can even leave the family and go, because atmartham Vishwam Tyajet. For the sake of the self, one can abandon the whole world also. Why? Because that self is the self of the entire universe. And the person who comes to realize that supreme self does the greatest service to the world. There's no greater service that can be done except realization. It's not a selfish desire at all. It's a desire which puts an end to all other desires and puts an end to ego finally, which is the root of all selfishness. So if one has that level of vairagya, Shastra even says you leave and go and contemplate on the self. And one Buddha realizing the self, look how many countless people are benefited or not. One Ramana Maharshi, he left his house at the age of 16. How many millions of people are benefited? So the benchmark to say what is a desire, the prioritizing desire and duty is my desire boosting my ego or is it reducing my ego? If it is not boosting my ego, there's nothing wrong. And if it is not, for that much time, if I am not able to do some of my duty, there's nothing wrong in that. Where one can balance, one should balance. Where if it is required, one has to even drop the duty completely, one can drop and go. Nothing wrong with that. That's what the scripture says.
Pranam Swamiji, infinite gratitude. It was so helpful to get your answer. Infinite gratitude. Only tears of gratitude.
Hari Om. Yes.
Hari Om Swamiji. I want to say that the pranas, they also borrow sentiency from consciousness. So then, and the pranas only are responsible for our respiration, that is inhalation and exhalation. So this respiration, this inhalation and exhalation is also an illusion, and it is helping us to realize the self.
See, from standpoint of consciousness, everything is an illusion, honestly. If you see the example of the waker and the dream, if a dream character is breathing inside the dream world, it is an illusion only, no? From the waker standpoint, the waker is lying on the bed. Now, suppose there's a dream tiger running behind a dream character. Let us say the name of that character is Soham. Now, I am somebody who is lying on the bed. My name is, let us say, Shivam. So now Shivam is lying on the bed dreaming that there is one Soham and the tiger is chasing that Soham. So the Soham's breath is also going up and down and he is very scared. Palpitations are happening. For Soham, it appears very real because there's one tiger chasing him. But for Shivam, there's nothing. When Shivam wakes up, realize, the Soham is mithya, breathing of that Soham also is mithya, tiger also mithya, everything mithya. So from consciousness standpoint, of course, it is a mithya. And the sadhana is only to realize that. So focusing on the prana, so just like that dream tiger can help that person to wake up, same way, all the sadhanas are to help us to wake up, to realize, I am already that which I am seeking. My nature is that infinite consciousness. Then what am I worried about? The tiger was also illusory, running also was illusory, breathing was also illusory, everything illusory.
And that you are saying that during we inhale and then there will be stop breathing, that is kumbhak, and then we again exhale and again stop. Again. So during this time, do we do our japa also along with it?
Nothing.
Okay.
If one wants to realize the self, one has to still completely the body, mind, intellect, everything. At that time, no need to do japa. If you want to develop the extreme level of single pointedness or something like that, you want to do japa, you can do. So there are enough other sadhanas because many people are not able to focus their mind on the breathing. So it will be said while you are chanting, while you are inhaling, I'm just giving an example, chant Om mentally. So the person will say, while inhaling one is chanting Om, then one is repeating Om in the mind. Then while exhaling one is chanting loudly Om. Again while inhaling one is. So that is for somebody who is not able to focus on the breath properly. If you are able to focus on the breath without any other thoughts coming, and if the mind can be in that quiet state when the breath is being held, then nothing is required. Don't do any other sadhana at that time. Just focus on that breathing, holding, and that time be aware that there is only consciousness. You will be aware by itself that will happen. So nothing else to do at that time.
Thank you, Swamiji. Hari Om.
But one important point, people who have heart issues, BP problem, cholesterol, all these kind of challenges must be very careful while holding the breath. They should do it, by consulting their doctor. And also, if you learn yoga from some proper practitioner, then only do it. Otherwise, don't focus for a long time on holding. Hold for 1 or 2 seconds and then exhale, because otherwise you'll have physical challenges. Okay, last question for today, Deepalji.
Hari Om Swamiji. Swamiji, you just said regarding the duty example. So I'm just like extending little, like we have been always hearing that unless say you want to take sannyas, then you just don't abandon your duties and just take sannyas. I mean, take permission from the family. So then, but right now you just gave an example of Gautam Buddha where he decided that okay, I will abandon and leave. So how one draws a line for that achievement of vairagya? I am like little confused about that.
Now, what is your question? Is it about should I take permission from family or I can leave whenever I
Yes,
feel like?
yes, yes.
Or
Yes, Swamiji. That like earlier, like previous talks, what I've heard, we have always heard that don't leave your duties and like do your nitya karma, and then you can take sannyas after taking permission from the family. So today, what you were saying was little different. So I
correct,
just wanted clarification. That's all.
correct. So there are two different aspects here to understand. One is a regular course of life which is prescribed, where a person goes through the stages of life, the ashrams of life. So one has studied, one has done work, one is having family, one is having responsibilities. So the karma yoga method is that. So to do the duties, remain in the world, take care of people, selflessly serve, do purification of the mind, etc. And when one has done all that, children have been settled, all that has happened, then one, with proper consent, etc., one goes. Either takes vanaprastha or sannyas, whichever. That's a regular course where one has done what needs to be done, and with proper explanation and proper communication, one departs. The second one is an exceptional situation where somebody has that tivra vairagya. Now that person cannot wait that when my grahastha will be settled, then I will do everything, because that tivra vairagya, when it comes, then it is just not possible, and it's not an impulsive decision. So Gautam Buddha, when he saw, Prince Siddharth, when he saw a dead person, old person, sick person, and he met a sannyasi. A lot of people don't know that. They think only sick person, old person, dead person. But the fourth person he met is a sannyasi. And from that sannyasi, he came to understand that there is a, desire is a source of evil, the self is a source of happiness, and all that. He came back. He didn't immediately quit. He reflected upon it. He thought, he was going through his life still and observing carefully. And then he came to this proper conclusion based on that Vivek, that I want to know what is this, the way out of this sorrow and suffering. Because if this is what finally life is going to make us become old, become sick, and you die, then what are we running behind here in these things? So then Tivra Vairagya, when it comes, then one doesn't wait. One, and that is not wrong. And that Tivra Vairagya is sustained. Then one leaves. Like Tapon Maharaj had Tivra Vairagya. And he was about to leave. In his situation, if you see again, there is a very different thing that happened there. He was about to renounce the world and go. Suddenly his father passed away. And now he saw that this child is only 8 years. I mean, his younger brother is very young, and little more time is required, and there is no other person in the family to take care. So he waits for 8 years. He takes care of the family, but he lives like a sannyasi while being in the house. Every evening he used to finish his work, go into the Panchavati in one place, and he used to meditate for 8 hours in the night. He used to meditate. So though he didn't leave the house immediately, his vairagya was such that he continued to live as a sannyasi only even at home. And when that boy was ready, when the education of his brother, etc., got over, he was on his own feet. That very day he left. And he said, no more there is a need for anybody to search me or come anywhere behind. He went. So each person has to decide as per their circumstances. But the principle which is guiding is vairagya. Vairagya is the basis of tyaga or sannyas. And that vairagya can be developed through the proper grahastha ashram, doing all duties, dharmata virati, Tulsidas ji says, or one has developed through satsang and past samskar is there, one has reflected, one has got vairagya, then one can drop whenever one has got that tivra vairagya, because all other relationships are temporary. They will come, they will go. Only the self is real. So then one can live like Buddha, or one can live, if there is some other compulsion, like Tapon Maharaj's case, then one still stays at home but lives as a sannyasi, and then one goes out when the time is ready. Leaves. So one can discriminate, decide based on this. All right. Thank you, everyone. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.